Hi, Laura. Luke, can you hear me? Are you online?
I am, yes. There's a lot of echo, by the way. Oh, that's better.
No.
That's the only mic that is aided. Okay, this is okay, so I need to just remove myself from this.
Hi, Laura and Luke, are you there?
Yes, I'm not sure if you can hear us.
Hi, Laura and Luke, can you hear me?
I can. I don't think you can hear us.
Hello?
Hello.
Are we able to communicate?
No?
Hi, Laura and Luke, are you there to join us?
We are, but I
They
don't
can hear us,
hear
but
us.
we cannot hear them.
Ah, okay. So we might have a little technical difficulty, but I wonder if we might start and then try to resolve that as we go along.
Ready to start.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Aidan White. I'm the editor of Newham Voices, and I'm delighted to be with you this afternoon for a discussion and a chat and some robust discourse, I hope, about the upcoming elections in Newham. Newham Voices, the local community newspaper, has organised these hustings in partnership with ReviveFM, and we're very grateful for the opportunity to be able to speak to you. We've got here in the studio a couple of the leading candidates, and also joining us online will be two of the other candidates. We're really grateful for them giving their time. Couldn't be at a more busy time. So this will be an opportunity for the candidates for the mayoral election to put their case for why they should be elected on May the 7th. But more importantly, actually, this is an opportunity for listeners, residents, to actually put their questions to the candidates and to ask them to explain themselves and to go beyond the well-meaning promises that are made in election manifestos and really try to get them to tune into the reality of life in Newham and the challenges that are facing the residents and the people who live and work here. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. This afternoon's session is going to last just over an hour, and what we're planning to do is to begin with giving the candidates an opportunity to state their case. Give them a few minutes to state their case, and then after that I've got one or two questions I'll want to put to them as well, and then I hope they'll respond to those, and then afterwards we'll have the opportunity to deal with some of the questions that we've already received and other questions that may come in from listeners. If you want to pose a question, you can call us here at 0333 444 0942, or send an email to management@revivefm.co.uk with your questions, and we'll try to put them in as we go along. So, a brief word of introduction. Here we are on the verge of what could be, a momentous election for Newham. After many years of Labour rule, the question of who is mayor is a really important one. We know that since the mayoral system was first adopted in 2002, there have been two mayors during that period. Robin Wales, who held the position for 5 terms, and he was followed by Roxana Fiers, who holds the position currently and has had 2 terms in office. So it's still a relatively new system, the elected mayoral system, but it was subject to a referendum here in 2021 when people were asked whether or not they wanted to keep it in Newham, and they decided they did. So for good or ill, the people of Newham have decided they want to elect the mayor separately, and the mayor's position is unquestionably one far beyond the question of being a figurehead, an ornamental figure representing the community, but actually someone who is in a powerful position to take decisions that could have a real impact on people's lives. So what we're planning to do is we're going to ask each of the candidates to say a few words. I'm warning now that I'll try to sort of keep to time, but give them about 5 minutes each, and that will be great. Let's go. Let's look forward to an interesting afternoon of discussion. We've reached out to all the candidates. Not all of them could join us, but I'm really pleased to say that we've got with us Farhad Hussain, who's the Labour candidate, Ariq Chowdhury from the Green Party. We've got Laura Willoughby from the Liberal Democrats, and we've got Luke Black, who is actually not himself a candidate, but he's actually sitting in and speaking for Terry Bloor, who's a candidate for the Conservatives. So let's go. Perhaps I can start with you, Farhad, and give you an opportunity to state your case. Why should you be elected as yet another Labour Mayor of Newham?
Thank you for inviting me. Let me start off by introducing myself. My name's Farhad Hussain. I used to be a councillor from 2010 to 2018 as a councillor in Newham. I've grown up in Newham. I went to local school, went to the Portway, went to Lister, went to a local college, Newvic, studied A-levels there, went on to university, studied aeronautical engineering at Imperial College, and I came back to Newham because Newham means so much to me. I want to give something back, and that's why I'm standing as the mayoral candidate for the Labour Party in the elections coming up. I am someone who has got a lot of experience when it comes to community engagement. I am a qualified teacher. I worked in the NHS for 7 years. I'm currently working on one of the biggest infrastructure projects in the country as an engineering consultant, and I work on a lot of development when it comes to cricket. I'm on the England and Wales Cricket Board Trust. The reason why I'm saying this is because I believe I have a lot of experience when it comes to leadership at executive level, which I feel is really important when it comes to leading for the future when it comes to the council. My background is in anti-war. The values of peace, equality and justice defined my politics when I first started and will define my politics going forward. And I am someone who's, like I said, grown up in the borough, which I've lived it. I've faced racism, I've faced discrimination, I've faced hardship, and I think it's really important that if we're going to elect future politicians, they know how it is on the ground. If you're going to make decisions for our local people, you need to know how it is on the streets and in our homes, and how people are struggling with the cost of living. Newham Labour has changed its leadership. I am leading Newham Labour, and we will be doing things differently. Decades of delivery when it comes to education in our schools. We've got the best schools in the country. Regeneration and investing in housing. That's a Newham Labour Council. We've invested in our youth centres, in our community centres. That's a Newham Labour Council. But we're going to do things differently though. On top of that, we will continue delivering, but we're going to do things differently in terms of putting Newham residents first. We've been listening to residents, and it's clear we need to focus on what matters to them. We need to clean up Newham, and that's why we're going to invest an additional £12 million into our cleansing team. We're going to bring back the free bulky waste collection. We're putting money back into our residents' pockets. When it comes to community safety, we're going to keep our streets safe. We're going to have dedicated enforcement officers across all our neighbourhood areas, and we're a zero tolerance approach to fly tipping. and they will work in collaboration with our local police, who will be in our public buildings, and we will have real local policing in collaboration dealing with hotspot areas. And the parking, we will sort out the parking in the borough. First parking permit free, which would then allow people to park anywhere in the borough 1 hour every day. That means you can go shopping, it means you can go and see your local, you can go to the local church, the local mosque, it means you can go and see a relative, because that's really important, because that's what residents are telling us, that's what they want. I'm going to also let residents decide when it comes to changes in the environment. Community balance, when there's changes to the environment, let residents decide. And I'm sure you can ask me questions a bit later on about that. But also, my background is in council finances. I used to be the chair of audit. The fifth pledge that I want to focus on is long-term financial planning. We will spend every penny wisely when it comes to council finances. 5 pledges, but my manifesto, which has been out, my focus is a different way of doing things. We're going to localise the way we deliver our services through something called our community neighbours model across 8 areas. Localise the way we deliver our services, work with our partners on the ground. That's our voluntary sector, that's our faith organisations, and let's work together to deliver those services, putting Newham residents first. It's such an important election.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, and that was very much to the point. I will come back to you later on. I've got a couple of questions because I think you raise a number of issues. But I think there are a number of questions that will come to. I go and move on to Arik Chowdhury, representing the Green Party. What would you like to say?
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for organising this event. So my name is Arik Chowdhury. I'm the Green Party's candidate for Mayor of Newham. I'm a councillor. I've been a councillor for the last 4 years, representing Canning Town North. I used to be in the Labour Party. For many, many years. But I quit back in the summer of 2024 due to the Labour Party's complicity in the genocide in Gaza. You might not remember, but at the time I quit, 10,000 children had been killed before the Labour Party could utter the word ceasefire now, and I couldn't vote for them. So I joined the Green Party, who have been very much behind the Palestinian people consistently. I'm also a parent. I have 2 young children. I have a 3-year-old daughter and I have a 3-month-old baby that was born at the beginning of this campaign. I grew up in Manchester originally, but I've lived in Newham for 13 years. And I think I break the mould of what people think a Green Party candidate is. I think people think that the Green Party are sort of tree-hugging, sandal-wearing hippies. But I've worked in very professional environments. I used to work in Canary Wharf in a big glass building in public sector audit. In my day job, I work in public policy. I advise governments all around the world, the UK, US, China, and the European Union, and specifically about artificial intelligence. And I studied economics and political science at the University of Birmingham. And I have a very simple platform in this election, which is, first of all, I want to root out the corruption and incompetence at Newham Council. Your listeners might not be aware, but the council is currently under investigation by the police for serious housing fraud, having given out 35 properties to people who were not eligible for them. And the council has also been given the worst possible rating by the independent regulator for social housing, has been criticised by the UK government with an official warning regarding the poor value for money that the Newham Council is delivering, and many, many other criticisms have been levelled at this Labour-run council. The second aspect of my platform is to ensure we have the best possible environment to live in, with clean streets and beautiful parks. Now, people would expect this anyway of the Green Party, but I want to make it very clear that this will be a huge priority for us. We'll be cleaning up our air, cleaning up our streets, making sure we have safe neighbourhoods to live in. And it's not acceptable what we have now, where we are labelled, Newham is labelled as the litter capital of England, and it's quite a normal sight now to see overflowing bins and rubbish fly tips on the streets. And the third aspect of my platform is to radically reform Newham's housing department so that it serves residents properly as a responsible landlord. Now, the Labour Party and other parties contesting this election want people to believe that car parking is the biggest issue facing this borough. But in my view, and in the reality, the biggest crisis facing this borough is housing. We have 35,000 people waiting on the council house waiting list. We have 1 in 18 people who live here are homeless. It's the highest rate in the whole country of England. And again, I mentioned Newham Council got the worst possible rating by the independent regulator for social housing, which is thousands of overdue repairs, fire safety checks not being done, and I've met so many people in my surgeries who come to me about this issue. I'll give you one example. I'm dealing with someone at the moment who's a breast cancer patient sleeping on the sofa with mice and damp and mold in their homes. This is the number one issue, and that'll be my priority if elected. And this is finally, this is a very, very serious election. And we've got, as you mentioned at the beginning, this could be the election where Labour lose their 60-year grip on Newham Council. And the parties contesting this, Reform, they have no chance of winning. The Newham Independents have no plan, they've published a manifesto. And the Labour Party have no credibility. And this race is very much between the Green Party and the Labour Party. And it's very uncomfortable for me to say these things. Forhad's a nice guy and Mahmood's a nice guy. But of the two of us, I will spend my first 100 days delivering for the people of Newham. But Forhad, the Labour candidate, unfortunately has a lot of journalists investigating him at the moment for a purchase of a council flat he made whilst a cabinet member, and there were serious questions about why that was issued as a right to buy. It was an empty flat, apparently an empty flat issued as a right to buy. And he's very likely to spend his first 100 days under investigation, whereas I'll be spending my first 100 days delivering for the people of Newham.
Thanks very much indeed. I wonder, we're already getting questions that are coming in regarding the question of the overall budget and how the money is actually going to be spent and so on. So I hope all the candidates do have some answers to some tricky questions regarding that. The last issue you mentioned is also sort of a question that will have to be put and answered, and so we'll have to see. I'd like to move on now to our third candidate. Laura, would you like to say a few words about the position of the Liberal Democrats and why you're standing for mayor? The 7th.
So ask Luke again.
Luke, can you hear us?
I can. I'm not sure that you guys can hear me. I don't think you can hear me. Because I couldn't hear Laura earlier.
I think we have got a problem.
No, unfortunately.
We've got a bit of a problem here trying to...
Yeah, I can hear him here. On here, but we can't hear him on the station. Okay, can you ask Luke to speak?
Luke, is it possible for you to sort of say a few words to us?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Is this working? I don't think it is, sadly. I'm looking at Laura and she obviously can't hear me.
Okay, can you ask Luke to speak?
Luke, is it possible for you to sort of say a few words to us?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Is this
Yeah, so if you give him a thumbs up.
We can hear you. We can hear you, Luke.
There's a lot of echo and feedback, unfortunately.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
No, Luke's mic's off. Let's turn his mic.
I think what we'll try to do is we'll seek to resolve this problem so that we can talk to Luke and to Laura. But meanwhile, I'm going to continue the conversation, if I can, with my colleagues in the studio here, who I don't have difficulty sort of communicating with because they're literally 2 feet away. Look, thank you very much, both of you, for what you had to say so far. We're going to go back and make sure we give Luke and Laura an opportunity to have their say as well. But quickly going back to what you said beforehand at the beginning, which was a new leadership and a change from the business as usual in Newham. I mean, there's a big question, I think, that comes from anyone who lives and works in Newham. Labour have been in control since mayors have been elected. Labour has been in control for decades in this borough. And yet there are massive problems, a massive crisis in terms of housing, social care, poverty, unemployment. Don't you think that Labour should admit that it's made some mistakes and apologise to the people of Newham for the mistakes that it's made in recent period?
The last few years haven't been perfect, and that's why we've got that change in leadership, Aidan. We haven't got things right. That's what residents are telling us, and that's why we've got to change the way we do things. That's why we've got a new leadership. This time we've got a grassroots candidate, that's me, someone who's been brought up in Newham, who understands Newham, understands residents, understands how tough it is out there when it comes to the cost of living. I know what needs to be done, I know how to deliver it, and that's how it's going to be very different in terms of the leadership going forward when it comes to Newham Labour. Can I just highlight that when I was a councillor from 2010 to 2018 and from 2010 to 2024, the coalition governments, the Tory governments, took money away from local services, from local government. Over £300 million was taken away from Newham. And it's this Labour government has given Newham over £217 million to invest in Newham local services. That's the Labour government working with the Labour Council. It means we can protect frontline services, keep our libraries open, put our residents, protect the most vulnerable. That's the big thing. And that will allow us then to run our services and do what matters the most when it comes to residents is basically deliver for them.
So what you're basically saying, I mean, if I get this right, is that you're a new leadership, you're going to be taking the Labour Party in a different direction, you're creating distance between your vision and the existing Labour Party administration here in Newham.
It's a very different way of doing things. My leadership style is about collaboration, it's about empowering, it's about delegating. It won't be top down, it'll be bottom up, working with faith organisations, the voluntary sector, in seeing how we can improve this borough, how we can make it better. So it'll be a different way of doing things.
Right.
And I did explain how we're going to deliver this through our community neighbours model. But it's not just about bringing everything together and creating community activity. It's real solutions dealing with community safety at a local level, local policing, dealing with hotspot areas, local cleansing, directing modifying the cleansing schedules, working with officers on the ground, putting resources where it's needed. Health preventative initiatives, dealing with adult social care. It's going to be at a local level. When I used to run the council and the community neighbourhoods model, we started doing this. There was a pause. I will bring this back in the first 100 days, and it won't be just community activity, it won't be just connection, it will be about real local delivery. And then we can create areas and neighbourhoods and a Newham that is well connected, where people can grow and people can prosper.
Great, thanks very much. Arik, listening to that, there's, I'm interested in your response, but first of all, I'd like to ask you about this idea that you're breaking the mould of the people's imagination about the Green Party. That is to say, that it's a marginal organisation, it's moving from the margins into the centre. And certainly that's been your approach as far as this election is concerned. I think it's a major concern, and it's being reflected in some of the questions that are being submitted now, is the disconnect that there is between promises that are made in an election and the reality of the money that's available to carry out the reforms that you've got in mind. I mean, how is the Green Party going to pay for its manifesto pledges in Newham?
Yeah, thank you. So just to respond to some of Paul Head's comments, first, and then I'll get to that question. So I have a huge advantage in this election, which is that I used to be in the Labour Party and I understand it very well. I was in the Labour Party for 13 years and I spent 2 years as a Labour councillor. I think the problem that Forhad has and the Labour Party in general, Newham has, is that a lot of what Forhad's saying is not that different actually to what Roxana was trying to do. The problem in the Labour Party is that there's so much division within the Newham Labour Party, and you'll follow this probably better than most of Newham Voices. But Roxana, to her credit, it's not like she didn't try to solve these things, but she had to face a lot of internal division, and that division still exists within the Newham Labour Party. There's no space for ideas or discussion. I'll give you one example. I raised an issue when I was a councillor, when I was in the Labour Party, around elderly pensioners being fined £150 for feeding the birds, and how we should look at enforcement in a more compassionate way. And I was threatened with suspension from the Labour Party for raising that question. So I think what people want to hear from the Labour Party really is how you're going to change the culture of your own party and actually allow people to stand up for their principles. Because what we have is we elect a lot of Labour councillors who don't do anything, who don't say anything, don't speak up when it matters, don't act when it matters. So you hear these words, but then you don't see it in practice. So that's why I think we're seeing a huge shift right now from Labour to the Greens. And going to your second question, about how we're becoming a bit more mainstream. A lot of our voters will be first-time Green Party voters. A lot of them will be people like me who have turned away from Labour and looked towards the Green Party because Labour has left them behind or doesn't represent them anymore. So I'm fully aware that our party is moving a lot. We're the biggest party in Newham now. We have 1,000 members, and our party membership nationally I think is around 260,000. We're one of the biggest parties in the UK now. And with that comes a lot of talent. And going to your third question about the finances, so I used to work in financial services in Canary Wharf for many years. I have an accountancy qualification. I worked in public sector audit. My job was auditing the finances of many public sector organisations. And I've spent the last 4 years on Newham Council's audit committee, so I have a very strong understanding of public sector finances. And in our manifesto, which was published day before yesterday, we've set out how we would fund our policies, and effectively we would look at every avenue of funding first of all, but we'd also create a new fund and work with local major employers to create the Newham Community Business Partnership Fund. And whilst it's a modest sum we're trying to raise through that fund, it's the sort of thing that would support the stuff that gets cut usually when finances are tough, so things like community festivals, park beautification schemes, Christmas lights. We will look at ways to fund those through new resources. And again, in my professional life, I've spent the last 5 years working in the technology sector, and I've done big partnerships with big organisations like Google, DeepMind, BBC and others. So I'm very accustomed to being innovative and finding new partnerships. And one more comment before we move on. So I've spent a lot of my life being underestimated, and I'm sure probably Labour underestimated me in this election. And I appreciate what we're putting out there is very bold and it's very radical, but it's very necessary, because what we have right now, the status quo in Newham, highest level of homelessness, litter capital of England, police investigation for fraud, it's not acceptable, it's not good enough. So we need to really have bold change, and the proposals I put forward to tackle the corruption in Newham Council, to improve our environment and to reform the housing department, they are necessary to address the challenges that we have in Newham. The biggest challenge in Newham right now is absolutely not car parking.
Look, thanks very much indeed for that, both of you. I'm really grateful because you've actually sort of opened up a whole number of areas of sort of discussion. I've got a number of sort of very specific questions, but I've also got a problem which I'm going to resolve, which is regarding having the other candidates have their say. So what I'm going to propose, we're a third of the way into our discussion, we've got another hour to go. I'm going to propose that we take a 5-minute breather. We sort of do a little bit of exercise, get ourselves ready for the main body of work which is to come, and I want you to sort of be thinking about now some of the sort of very specific questions on policy which are being raised. One, of course, is the question of money. The other is the question of, how do we deal with poverty in the borough? The question of local democracy, how does that operate? The questions related to car ownership, parking, fly tipping, all sorts of sort of issues which are of concern to residents. We're going to return to those, and we've got quite a few, as I say, questions lined up from our listeners so far. So we'll see you in 5 minutes. Thanks very much so far. Let's carry on. See you all soon.
Ooh, wow, okay.
Can I grab some water?
I was gonna say. So you've emailed them, yeah?
I've one of them's. So the only way that we're going to be able to do this is I'll take them on the call, and then obviously they'll be on loudspeaker, and then on audio they'll be able to get their message across. But videos.
So is it not possible? Is no one close enough to come in and join us in the studio?
If they're willing to, I'm more than happy for us to do that.
I mean, if we could get Laura, I think she's close by.
I'm calling Luke now. Hello. Hi, is that Luke? Hi, mate. It's
If they haven't made the effort,
Sorry?
if they haven't made the effort, local candidates, I don't think, you know.
No, my deal about it is these guys are great. They just, you know. But
Yeah, sorry. Are you gonna allow me to respond to that?
you've got to respond to that question. I mean, I would. No, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond to that.
Yeah.
When I sent my message out to the, I asked for not provocative and sort of commentary. I will return to it and give you an opportunity to answer that.
Yeah.
There's no question I haven't omitted that. I mean the thing about it is.
It's still live, by the way. Did you know that?
Am I still live?
The whole thing was just live, yeah, I can hear it.
I don't think it was live. You may be able to hear it.
I could hear the whole thing.
Okay. Well, we'll see.
You want to look at the screen, you want the yellow off.
According to this board here, there's nothing.
I've spoken to Luke.
Are we live?
So
Are we live?
no, we are not live.
No, I didn't think so.
No. So the mics are down. So
The mics
the
are
radio's live. So Luke will join us via audio. So I'll call him. So when we resume, if you want to give him his intro, he'll do
And
it.
Laura, have we heard from her?
No. If someone can give me her number, I'm happy to give
I've
her
got
a
a
call.
number. I'll try again. I'll give it another 2 minutes.
So
This is still live, right?
Sorry?
This is still live because I could hear the whole chat.
No,
You know what I mean?
it's here. The station is on live, but here the broadcasting is off.
I could hear the whole chat in there.
Internally, I think, just in building, no?
No, well, you
No,
hear in
no,
the
watching
discussions.
YouTube.
No, you won't be able to.
I don't know, it seemed like it.
No, the radio's running.
Okay.
That's the radio. That's what's
That's the
being
radio
played.
running. Yeah.
When I was in there, I could hear. Yeah, okay.
Let me just-
Maybe one of the mics was up, but they're all down now. Let's go back up again. How you guys getting on? Good.
That's good. Did you solve this issue with
Hello.
the other candidates?
Oh, that's very good, Laura. We just wondered whether or not it would. How far away are you from?
This is why I'm not a tech guy, or the tech team should be there today.
Very good. Thanks very much for that. Thanks all. Okay, we'll try to be in contact with you shortly. Okay, bye.
Can I suggest we do low traffic neighbourhoods? Sorry.
I'm being told by Laura that actually it is live. Everything's being heard.
I'm having here very quickly.
जो कुरान मजीद की तालीम के फरोग में अपना हिस्सा डालते हैं अल्लाह रब्बुल इज़्ज़त के यहाँ उनके लिए बड़े इनाम इकराम हैं। आइए हुफ़ाज़ इकराम की कुरानी स्पॉन्सर करें और अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला के इन इनामात को अपने नाम करें। मिनहाज
Are we okay to go back live? Or?
Well, I'm ready to go back live. I'm just how are we going to deal with them? They will.
I'm going to call.
You're going to call them, then give them the opportunity to speak, and we'll be able to hear them speak. So I can push all this one up.
It's not about killer abs or big left jabs, mirror selfies or TikTok fads. It's about embracing every level. You're struggling with obsession.
Have you ever thought about becoming a truck driver?
If you want to ask...
Welcome back, everyone. Although it's not so much welcome back, because I understand actually you've been listening in on our internal conversation, which is not bad actually. I mean, it just shows that there's a sort of added value. But look, what we're aiming to do now is we're going to see if we can hear from the two candidates who we haven't heard from so far. That's Luke Black, who is representing the Tory candidate for mayor, Terry Bloor, and then we'll hear from Laura Willoughby, who's representing the Liberal Democrats. So the first one we're going to hear from is Luke. So Luke, over to you. Would you like to say a few words? As I say, you've got at least 5 minutes to say.
Can we check that you guys can hear me first?
We can hear you very well.
Well, there we go, we got there in the end. These things happen. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I know it's a last change. For those listening, my name's Luke Black, and I'm thrilled to be filling in for Terry Bloor, who is our Conservative candidate for this election. But very happy to fill in for her and answer any questions that I can. I really wanted to just start off by asking everyone who's listening, do you feel better off after Labour has been in for such a long time? That's the question that we are asking people when we're out in Newham and knocking on doors, is are you feeling better off after the Labour mayor has increased the mayoral precept by 85% since 2016? Do you feel better off that the Labour Council has raised council tax almost every single year since 2019, up 58%? Do you feel better off that you're paying maybe up to 60% more in rent just to put a roof over your head here in Newham? Do you feel better off if you're a leaseholder and you're paying up to 64.5% more for your service charge to live in Stratford or Canning Town? Do you feel better off if you're using the DLR, the train or the bus and paying 26% more than you did in 2016? Do you feel better off Labour has closed the Plaistow police station front desk so that you cannot go and report a crime in person? Do you feel better off that shoplifting is now a weekly, if not daily, occurrence for many businesses on Barking Road and in Stratford? Do you feel better off that your energy bills have gone up and the Labour Party has taken away the winter fuel allowance from pensioners up and down the country? And if you're a graduate, which there are many here in Canning Town and in Stratford, many of those on plan too, do you feel better off that Labour is forcing you to spend an extra 6% arbitrarily on your graduate loans? I do not think the answer to any of those questions is yes. And we as Conservatives, we want you to not just feel better off, we want you to be better off. We want people to be able to live and thrive here in Sheffield. We want to build our field of economics, we want them to start families, we want them to enjoy their lives, we want them to be able to start businesses, to get involved with their community and to volunteer. But at the moment, people aren't thriving in Newham because they're taxed too much. Even businesses are difficult. People can't afford to get onto the property ladder. They're spending up to over 50% of their take-home pay on rent, unable to ever put down the extremely high amount of interest. Leaseholders are trapped in an unfair leasehold spiral, and they're feeling less safe. Crime and antisocial behaviour is rampant in parts of Newham, and it's a real shame. And it's making people not want to stay here. It's making people not want to thrive. And that's all very well. What are you using Conservatives? Well, we're going to build abundant housing, common hold and freehold for the people who buy property here are not receiving a penny out of the blue, letters telling them that they owe thousands more in service charge. Lower business rates for small businesses in Newham, so that businesses can thrive here, they can employ more people, and that they can provide great products and services. we pre-tell that we will make the selling the frequently unused and they had property up towards London City Airport, the document house, and forced a full audit of our disposal of our government is how we're taking in
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Luke. I mean, I think the questions that were posed there were rhetorical, actually relevant in many senses, and I think a lot of people will have felt that the points that Luke has made on Terry's behalf do actually they do appear to be in tune with a lot of the criticism that there is around. That although politicians, mainly Labour politicians who provide the leadership in the borough of Newham, do seek to promote and highlight the very positive things that have been achieved, and one has to say there have been positive things that have been achieved. The reality is that for many people, the difficulties of a cost of living, the difficulties of holding down a job, the difficulties of living in a borough where the talents that people have are not being fully exploited and developed, causes many people to be rather cynical about what politicians are saying. So I'm hoping that in a few minutes we will hear from Laura Willoughby, who will put the case for why people should vote Liberal Democrat in the election. Meanwhile, if I can go back to one thing that was said, I'll come back to Laura in a second. One thing that was said earlier, which I do want to sort of pick up on, forehand, is a question which was put to you, rather personal one, I think, and I know this has been a matter of controversy, and also that a question has come in regarding a report in London Centric about the circumstances surrounding your acquisition of an apartment here in Newham during the period and when you were in the leadership of the council under Sir Robin Wales. I think it's very important that you have an opportunity really to deal with that. I mean, what's your response to this concern that something went on, not that it was improper, not that it was illegal, not that it was corrupt, but something went on which has been unexplained. How do you feel about that?
Well, I do want to clear up this matter, and first of all, I want to say it's gutter politics.
I don't think it's gutter politics.
So if you let me finish, it is gutter politics, and so that's number one. The claims that have been made are completely false, and we know there's people on certain platforms have been asked to take those things down because it's completely false. The council, this matter has been raised by the council previously. It was investigated. It's closed.
It has been investigated already.
Previously, and it's closed. And so this is definitely gutter politics, and it's disgusting. But you know what? The lies that are spread by opposition candidates, do you know what? It makes me stronger. And the division and the hate that some of our opposition is spreading, do you know what? Newham communities can see right through it, and it makes them more united. And I can show you. And the more you put down Newham, the more you're negative about Newham, I'm more determined to win, to put Newham residents first and make this borough a great place to live.
Okay, thanks. I mean, I want to leave it for the moment, Eric, because
big accusations have been made there that I'm spreading
politics. 30 seconds.
2 points. Jim Waterson is not an opposition candidate. He's a very respected journalist for London Centric who has found out that Forhad has issued a flat as a right to buy, and that's inexplicable, so empty flats. Second point, I have a letter from the external auditors which indicates to me, as very plain in black and white, I can show it to you afterwards if you're interested, that the monitoring officer at Newham Council has begun an investigation, a fresh investigation into this. So the idea that it's a closed matter is simply false, and it's not gutter politics. Me as an opposition councillor, but also as an opposition candidate, it's my absolute right to raise these questions and suggest that this matter, which is unexplained, and it's been unexplained again by Paul Hand, should be investigated externally and impartially. Okay, explain.
I mean, the libelous claims.
Tell me where the libel is.
So
you can't tell me where the libel is.
Completely false.
Explain to me why it's the right. Explain to me why it's the right to buy a lease.
It's a Newham share scheme. not the right to buy it. So that's
Why does
where
it
it's
represent part 5
completely false.
Why does it represent part? Why
So,
does it,
like
why
I
does it
said-
say part 5 of the housing
Like I
Act
said,
on the act then?
Like I said,
Jim, what's the line?
the key thing is the Newham communities can see right through this. And
They can see
I am
through it.
very confident of that. These are libelous claims.
It's not. Okay, tell me what claim I made that's libelous.
There's gutter politics.
Tell me what claim I made that's libelous.
And I am determined.
You can't tell me.
I am
You can't tell me what claim, can
determined
you?
now to win this and win
You
this
can't tell me
bid
what claim is libelous.
for our residents, for our communities. Our communities can see right through this.
Yes, they can see right
Well,
through
what
this.
we
And it's just not in the way you think.
let's
Not in the way you
let's
think.
let's put that to one can't put it to one side because it's an issue which will be returned to, and if it's true that there is a current investigation going
Jim
on.
Waterson is not a
Jim Waterson is a very respected
Yes.
journalist. I understand that very well, and as a journalist I will defend his right to report freely about what's being said, and as a journalist as well, you know, it's very, very important that we don't say things which are untrue, and we're not deceptive in our handling of the facts.
Yeah.
That is absolutely clear. So that is why there's always a need for transparency. There's always a need for clear, independent investigation of claims and counterclaims and so on. So if this matter is being investigated, then I think you, Forehand, will be as happy as anyone to see the outcome, because I'm sure you're convinced that there's absolutely no foundation at all in what's being said, and you, Arik, will be also very happy because, as far as you're concerned, it will be subject to proper investigation. But I don't think it's going to be resolved here and now. And I do think that it is a matter that should be out in the open. It is a matter which everyone should be transparent about, and it is a matter which we should at some point ensure is properly resolved. But I'm grateful that we've been able to sort of to actually have that discussion, but I mean I really wouldn't like us to continue it because it's not necessary. The views have been expressed, it's very clear, it's under investigation. Let's see what transpires from that. What we don't want to have, and I know what the residents of Newham don't want to have, is to have internal squabbling between political leaders about, you know, who's behaving badly and who's not behaving badly. I think what they'd like to hear about is what are you going to do to make life better for the people here in Newham. So I wonder if I can turn to Laura Willoughby, if she's there.
We'll go back to Luke and then we can go after the question.
So we're going to go back to Luke. Over to you again, Luke. Is that okay? Okay.
I'm not sure you can hear me.
I can hear you very well. Yep.
Super. I was told I was unfortunately cut off towards the end of
Yes,
my
you were.
remarks, so I don't know where we finished. Do you mind giving me a rough idea?
Well, I mean, I think I'm trying to think where you were. I think you had sort of comprehensively sort of analysed what you felt was going wrong in Newham on the Labour Watch. I think what we were moving towards was your view about what will change under a Tory administration.
Super. Thank you so much. So, what would change? Firstly, everything comes down to housing. Housing is the biggest crisis that is affecting everybody here in Newham. It affects people in several ways. One is the simple fact of rent. Rents have soared by 60% in this city since 2016. And that means people are spending, in many cases, well over 50% of their take-home pay on rent. This is absolutely scandalous, and the only way that we can fix this is by building abundant housing. We have a supply and demand issue in London, and we need to therefore radically increase the number of homes that we have so that people can see that rent going down, which then leads me on to my second point, able to get onto the property ladder. How can you possibly save a deposit in this city, in Newham, if you're spending 50% of your take-home pay on your rent? You would need to be earning six-figure salaries to be able to purchase a 3-bed house in Stratford or Canning Town. That is a huge scandal, and that is an absolute, it's just unacceptable, and we must do better. But the only way that we can fix that is by building, and that is what we've had to do. Very quickly as well, I spoke a little bit about just general economic malaise within Newham. Newham's got so much potential. It can be an absolutely and will be an absolutely fantastic place, but we need to scrap business rates on all of the small businesses within this borough. They have seen a huge increase in their in their cost base since this Labour government came in with the National Insurance Contribution Scheme changes, with increases to the National but also business rates themselves. And businesses are seeing huge amounts of money required that they never needed before to keep their business going. And that's resulting in them reducing either what they provide to their customers, or sadly, in many cases, reducing the number of people that they employ in their growth plans, or reducing the hours that are offered to their staff. So we will scrap business rates. We will also freeze council tax. We have identified £111 in the budget that we would free up to be able to do this. This primarily involves the selling off of the mostly unused council building down towards Dockland House. And we will do a full audit, because unfortunately we've got £2 million of debt forecast for this year in Newham Council. That's only going to increase, and it's scheduled and forecast to increase up to 3.4 million, by 28-29. Why does this matter? Well, our children and grandchildren will be paying this off in generations to come, and we need to be able to fix that now, because that will only increase over time, and it will hamstring future Newham Council administrations from being able to do the things that we all want in Newham, which is to make this a safe, prosperous and happy place to be. So I hope that gives a good overview of what we would do that is differently.
Thank you very much indeed. Luke, I just want to very quickly come back to you on one of the things you said. You talked about raising money through the selling off of assets. There's a lot of criticism about selling off assets in Newham, because you can only sell them off once. Once they've gone, they've gone. And if your asset base disappears, the question is, what do you have stored up for the future?
That's a fantastic question. I think, unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of waiting for things like that. If we've got £2 million in debt on our budget sheet right now, we need to take drastic action, because it's only going to increase as time goes on. So, unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of holding on to some of these assets. I think one of them should certainly be council buildings that are not that used. We live in an era now where people are working from home more often. We have ample office space around the borough. We don't need this very expensive building that I'm sure people do enjoy going to visit, but we don't need it, right? And we can find other ways of working around it. We need a sense of urgency from the Labour Council about the level of debt that is on the budget here, because, as I said, it's our children and grandchildren that will be servicing that debt in future council tax bills that come through their letterbox.
Thank you very much indeed. What we're going to try to do now is to talk to Laura Willoughby, if it's possible. But we're going to call her back, and we're going to get in touch with her. Going back to the studio here with Arik and Forhad, you heard there the Tory solution to the question of the sort of the financial crisis. What are your thoughts about what more can be done to raise money? It's true, isn't it, Forhad, that the budget that was eventually agreed in Newham was only possible thanks to a massive bailout from the Labour government, and the possibility of future bailouts is absolutely necessary to stave off the possibility of oncoming debt. There's a thought about around a £2 billion debt further down the line. So, is it possible to rely only on handouts for the future of Newham's finances?
We've seen the power of a Labour government coming to support a Labour council and councils across the country just over the last few months. We need to be a lot more more efficient with our spending and the way we handle our finances. The way we go forward is we need to look at funding outside, external funding, but also to look at where capital spend, look at our Section 106 monies, our SIL monies, and see how we can invest that in our local communities. And I believe we can do that from a bottom-up approach than a top-down. So it's tough. The first 18 months, we need to make savings of, there's going to be savings of £85 million that need to be found in the future administration. We've got temporary accommodation costs, nearly £80 million a year. It's tough. We need to kind of manage our finances. While we're doing that and managing our revenue, we need to look at how we can bring in capital, external funding to support our communities. And we can do that through Section 106 monies from developments and our energy infrastructure levy. And look at how we can invest in our communities whilst we're managing those finances.
Ari, I mean, what's your line on this? I mean, you heard from the Tories that the business rates should be eliminated for small businesses and so on. Where is the money going to come from? Who has to be taxed in order to try to ensure that Newham can pay its way and that the services that people need in Newham can be maintained?
I mean, it might not surprise you to hear that. I personally think the Conservatives shoulder a lot of the responsibility for the financial strain that Newham Council and other councils across the country are facing. However, Luke does raise an interesting idea around the use of office buildings, and I would be quite interested actually to see, if not selling them off, certainly looking at how we can monetise them in a better way. But we've been very open in our manifesto about how we'll fund our policies, and we will look, I'll read it out, we'll look to fund these by a mixture of modest tax rises within the UK government's maximum 5% annual increases, the reallocation of council resources, efficiency savings, the establishment of the Newham Business Community Partnership Fund, and external grants from government, Transport for London and others, and the full expenditure of the Community Infrastructure Levy and the abolition of unnecessary paid councillor positions, such as deputy cabinet members, and finally a small percentage cut to the council's reserves. Second point I want to make is we should also try to spend the money that we do have already better. So I've made a big part of my campaign rooting out the corruption and incompetence of Newham Council. Part of that is trying to ensure that we have better value for money. So the Green Party, if elected, will establish a new value for money and anti-corruption unit, which will look at reviewing how we spend money across the council, doing value for money audits, looking at contracts that we're undertaking. And we're also the only main competitor in this election that's not giving away free giveaways with no benefit. The Labour Party, with their parking policy, they're going to cut away £5 to £20 million of council revenue so that people can park their car 1 hour a day. People, by the way, can already park their car for free every day. If you use the My Permit app, you can see you've got you have allocation of free parking every month. So we are the only party that's going into this election being honest with voters, that we will look to increase taxes up to that maximum, but we will use that money better and we will invest in infrastructure. We're going to create four new major cycle routes across Newham. We're going to improve the air quality. We're going to expand free school meals for all secondary school pupils to help people's health and put £600 back into the pockets of parents. The Labour Party and the Newham Independents who didn't show up today, they are giving away huge amounts of money for very, very, very little benefit.
Thanks very much indeed. I think that you've touched on a number of questions which we're going to come to after the break. We're going to take a short break, and after that break we'll hear from the Liberal Democrats about their policies. We've got a number of questions on parking, on the problems of multi-occupancy in housing, issues related to Queen's Market. There are lots of local issues which our residents are very concerned about. We're going to come back to those after the break. Thanks very much.
There's been questions coming in online as well.
Was this
Okay, great. Thank you very much indeed. We're into the last lap this afternoon. We've been hearing from all of the candidates who turned up, and I'm really grateful and thankful that they did. Forhad Hussain, Eric Chowdhury, and Luke Black, who's been talking on behalf of Terry Bloor, the mayoral candidate for the local Conservatives. Before we get into a lot of questions that we've got that have been coming in while we've been on the air, I'd like to give Laura Willoughby an opportunity to say a few words. Laura, thank you very much indeed for your patience as we've sort of got through this difficulty. Over to you. Explain to us what the Liberal Democrats are going to do, which will make a difference in the upcoming election.
Hi, well, I'm Laura, and just a little bit about me first. So I've actually got experience in local government as well as some of the other candidates. I actually was a councillor in Islington for 12 years. We took over the council from a failing Labour council back in 2000. So I know very much how it is that you turn a council around that's been neglected by Labour for a very long time. And it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of commitment and a lot of stamina from a leader. I think local government is really important. It's the part of democracy that delivers all of the services that are really important to us. And so I know that you've had some quite heated debates here, but whoever you pick for mayor in this election, you need to be sure that they actually live up to the Nolan principles. And you may never have heard of them, but there are 7 principles of public life. They're things that I have lived my whole life by, and I trained other councillors to do. And it's about selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness and honesty. And I do think very much that this borough has been let down by leadership and by councillors who haven't always looked at those principles of public life and put the residents first and lived and acted and worked by those. And so I guess whenever you look at the manifestos when you come through the door, I would suggest that you look at all of the candidates and think about who it is that you can trust to do the things that need to happen. And there's lots that need to happen. No candidate here will know all of the answers immediately. They're going to have to work with officers, dig deep into the finances and work closely with communities to come up with the answers for the problems that we have here in Newham. But you need to make sure that this isn't just a rehash of, previous councillors that you can't trust. You need to have a new broom and a clean sweep. In terms of what Liberal Democrats want to do, well, I do want to rebuild that trust. These are principles that I live by every day. I run a social impact business, and those are things that I take very properly and seriously around looking after other people's finances. And so you want somebody who can rebuild trust and act on what matters most to local people. I was actually flabbergasted by the state of housing repairs here, and we do have a housing issue in terms of the number of housing places available, but we also have council houses that have got damp and mould that really needs to be sorted as a priority. People can't keep living in homes that are unfit, that aren't maintained and are not safe to live in. We need to work with partners to strengthen youth services and create better opportunities for young people in the borough. Certainly you've talked a lot about the council offices that are empty at the moment. Well, it's a part of Newham that no business wants to work in, but how can we attract some businesses in that not only want to use that space but could also employ our young people? We've talked a lot about fly tipping and prevention and enforcement. Plaistow is awful, and I know other parts of the borough are as well. We need to bring back bulky waste services that everyone can use, and better enforcement of fly tipping. And you may have noticed that shoplifting is on the increase, and we deserve the shop staff in all of our retail outlets need to feel safe, and we need to clamp down on shoplifting, because we also need to revive our high streets. We also need to make people feel confident about going out and shopping, but also about people setting up businesses to make sure that we've got, markets and places that are great to be part of and to shop in, and high streets that we want to use. I also want to make sure that we've got better cycling, better public transport. Lots of discussion around cars. Every part of London charges for people to park cars. I know it's incredibly controversial. In Islington there were road humps and parking spaces that had more votes than I had, which was a bit depressing. It's always a very tough issue. But we want to reduce pollution. We want our young people to grow up healthier. sometimes we're going to have to make the hard decisions on how we deal with the lack of supply of parking spaces on our street and to encourage people onto public transport. It needs integrated policy, it needs policy that works together. So there are no easy solutions for Newham, but all I would encourage people to do is to look at the manifestos that come through the door and ask who they think has got the most integrity, who they think that they've got some trust in, who that they can look at and see that they've got a plan for action and that they can begin to change what I think is decades and decades of neglect from a Labour council. So I know that you didn't want lots of sort of political point scoring on each other, but sometimes it takes moving from what has always been the case, where you've got a party that's been very comfortable and has taken a vote for granted, and you need to shake that up and you need to bring new leadership in that's got some energy and dynamism to do that. And there are candidates in this election that can do that, and I am one of those.
Look, thank you very much, Laura. I mean, you made your case very well and very succinctly, and I appreciate that very much. You also raised a whole number of issues which I think will take us a long time to discuss in some detail. But what I'd like us to do now, and as we move into the last half hour of our discussion, is to really sort of focus on some of the questions which have come in during this afternoon of discussion. It's fair to say that there has been a sort of general response, and we're very grateful to everyone who's made their points of view known. There have been people have listened to what has been said, and someone has said, well, it's all very well to calling for efficiency and cuts in administration and so on. As someone says, £10 million cuts in disability services is not going to sort of improve efficiency, but it'll make life worse for some people rather than others. A lot of people who sort of want to talk about low traffic neighbourhoods, about whether or not these are a good thing, whether or not it's just people who, you know, are these people who are basically NIMBYs, as it's called, you know, trying to sort of protect their own sort of little corner at the expense of others, or are they a contribution to making air pollution less, about improving the quality of life of people in the borough? One of the questions that's come up has been the question of the concern for sort of particular areas in the borough. What about the future of Queen's Market? I mean, a couple of questions we've got are the Queen's Market has been in Plaistow has been an issue for such a long time, it appears that the council have got plans, but some of our listeners think they won't work at all. What will you do about Queen's Market? So there's a number of questions there that I'd like you to sort of address. Local infrastructure, what needs to be done to improve it, such as Queen's Market. LTNs, are they really sort of valuable? Will they make life better, or does it make it just more difficult for people who actually unfortunately got cars? And are these cuts actually going to be efficient in working? Are they going to make life better, or are we just going to have a continual erosion of the quality of services available in Newham? Who wants to start? Arik.
These are all great, really great questions. So on markets, my fellow Green councillors Nate Higgins and Danny Keeling have been very much active in the Friends of Queen's Markets campaign, and I've attended a couple of meetings, or one meeting myself quite recently, and we've committed in our manifesto to relist Queen's Market as an asset of community value, which it used to have prior to COVID, but it lapsed and hasn't been relisted due to inaction by Newham Council, and this gives the local community certain rights over the sale of that market. But also, having spoken to some of the people at the market, you know, it seems like a lot of money was spent to effectively put up a big wooden board on top in front of it, and it hasn't really addressed the issues that the market has. Secondly, we've also committed to support the revival of Rathbone Market in Canning Town. So this used to be a thriving market, and it's now a shadow of its former self. And we want to support small businesses in the Green Party and want to explore options for reviving Rathbone Market, making it easier and more profitable for stores to open and operate in the area. LTNs is a really, really interesting topic. So the Green Party, there's lots of reasons to support LTNs. The Green Party supports it for two reasons. One is to actually make our neighbourhoods safer, to walk in, more beautiful, more trees, but also to improve air quality. We want to get more people using public transport. And I say that as someone who drives a car. I've got two small kids, so I know how important it is to have a car, or how convenient it is to have a car. But it also accepts the argument that we need to be using public transport more, we need to be walking more, we need to be much more mindful of our air quality. And in Newham, people, you know, unfortunately, there are children who have been hit by cars in Newham. So we should really take it quite seriously about how we improve the safety of our neighbourhoods. So that is effectively what the role of a low traffic neighbourhood is. However, these have been quite divisive. So what we've also committed to is to implement new neighbourhood planning councils across the borough, which will work in a much more deliberative way. By which I mean, rather than what Forehead and Labour are proposing, where you effectively have referendums which divide communities, we will put forward ways that find consensus amongst residents, and we won't put big decisions for referendums and ballots, because if you do that, you really need to have genuinely informed residents. And unfortunately, what happens, and I spent a long time working on this. I used to be in the Labour Party for many years. I worked for an MP called Graham Allen. He was an MP for 30 years, Nottingham North. He retired in 2017, but he did a lot of work on deliberative democracy. He founded the Early Intervention Foundation. And the issue with the referendum model that Labour Party are proposing is that it effectively asks people who don't have a lot of time to think about the issues, or benefits people who have the time to think about the issues, to make a huge decision on their local area without necessarily being representative. What I would want our neighbourhood planning councils to be is be a bit more representative, be a bit more mindful of the fact that if you organise a meeting in the evening, people who work night shifts can't attend them. And again, when we look at how citizens' assemblies and citizens' constitutions have been done, citizens' conventions have been done properly, a lot of money has gone behind it, because you have to do things like, if you're going to do something in the evening, you have to cover the wages of someone who's missing their shift. And if you want them to be informed, you have to get experts in the room and really inform them about it. So we will roll out these LTMs, but we will do it in a much more collaborative way, not in this sort of divisive way.
Thanks very much. I mean, it's been controversial for it. How are you going to deal with it?
We've got to stop doing things to people, to our communities. So overnight, suddenly we have an LTN, or suddenly a change to the local environment. That's got to stop. We've got to bring the community together along that journey. When I was a councillor, when we made those changes to the local environment, when we implement the residents' parking zones, we had community ballots. And it was quite simple. If the community didn't want it, it didn't happen. If the community did want it in that local area, it happened. It's called local democracy. And one of my main pledges is let residents decide. Community ballots. We've done this before, and we can do it again. I'm not for or against LTNs. I do like the idea of safer school streets. It means my little kids can cross the road and go to school in Plaistow. But again, who am I to decide to implement those kind of changes, say in Manor Park, when I live in Plaistow? Let residents decide. It's that simple. And so
would you apply that to, for instance, Queen's Market, the future of Queen's Market?
So if I could talk about Queen's Market, so just talk about LTNs. Queen's Market, it's a wider issue. It's not just Queen's Market. It's Green Street. We need to invest in Green Street, in our high streets. Green Street should be an international destination. It should, we need to work on its brand. But we need to bring those changes through the local businesses on the ground. So I told you earlier about our local neighbourhoods model, where we're going to localise the way we deliver services, but it's all about localising the way we bring about change. Residents and businesses need to drive that change. There's a business traders association in that area. They need to bring that change with the local authority. At the same time, we need to look at how we're going to bring an investment into that local area. So it starts off with the public realm, but then the development. But that change needs to come at a local level.
So one of the things that's we're getting messages which basically say, they'd like to hear from the candidates that there's a pledge never to build luxury apartments on the Queen's Market site. That seems to be straightforward. I mean, that seems to be a reasonable demand. The question about LTNs, you say you would sort of organise local consultation and so on, but actually, wasn't there a lot of local consultation on LTNs anyway?
The difference is community ballots. It's residents, every household deciding. Consultations locally, that's fine. Having a conversation, that's a good starting point. But I'm talking about real consultation, real engagement, door to door, everyone deciding what they want, and then let's basically go in that direction. We've done it before with the resident parking zones. It worked, and the community was brought along that journey, and that's really important.
Right, I just want to get Luke to join this conversation.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Super, thank you. I do not think that LTN should be a priority for bigger issues. Like I said earlier, the fact that the forecast debt is forecast to go up to 3.4 billion by 2028-2029. So we need to get a sense of perspective on what matters here, and that's making sure that our children and grandchildren are not servicing the debt that we are refusing to tackle right now in the future. What I will say though about the market is there isn't a binary between building something and not developing at all. We can create developments that allow existing assets such as Queensroad Market to thrive, whilst also improving something to make it better for everybody who lives here in Newham. So I would be open to any and all ideas on what we can do to make sure that markets like Queensroad are still a fantastic community asset, but also can provide additional revenue streams for the council and additional housing. Yes, housing as well, because we chronically need more housing in this council if we are to ever fix the housing crisis that is affecting so many people.
Thanks very much indeed. Laura, would you like to join?
Yes, you've got me online as well. Got a group call. Yes, I just wanted to just add in, I wouldn't want to scrap any of the LTNs that we've currently got. Every road traffic scheme should always end up under review and should be part of an ongoing process of making walking, playing and cycling easier in the borough. We all need to get around in other ways, not just by car. In terms of the market, the whole of Green Street needs a regeneration project. There will need to be ways to achieve that, and new housing is one of those ways. So the important thing is we keep a market, not that we keep the physical structure that it's currently got, and that way we may be able to benefit from Section 106 and development money that may be able to support the whole of Green Street. You want to lift the whole area, and you want to create a market that will survive for the future, and there are ways to do that, and do that as a community through a really rigorous regeneration process that we work on together. I don't agree that we should put everything that the council does under to a referendum. It would be expensive, and the same people will always end up responding, and that would be, annoying middle class women like me, quite frankly, and that won't be what the community wants. It's best that the council understands how to connect with communities to get the right results for the right situation, and not throw everything out to referendums that can be very expensive, and like I say, give you road humps and parking spaces that have got more votes than councillors. So let's make sure that regeneration has the community at the heart. I was always very disappointed by the process that the council went through for the developments that they built around Plaistow Station. They missed a huge opportunity to improve the area and the high street, and it could have been done a lot better, but they refused to engage on that, and I think that's a real shame. And this council should definitely be a listening council, and a council that works with its officers, its community, its voluntary sector to get the right result for everybody.
That's a really important question which you brought up at the end, which is actually how the council works with its officers. There's been a lot of concern in recent times about the high turnover of very senior executives in Newham, and the question of the relationship between the officers and the council itself. How can that be improved? That's one of the issues that has come up in the discussions that we've had.
I'll just say it's one of the first things whoever becomes mayor will need to sort out. They'll need to sit down with the senior management. You've actually got a really experienced chief exec right now. You'll be foolish not to take advantage of that skill and expertise. But councils do really well if they've either got a council chief exec that understands what they're doing, or a leader that knows what they're doing. For a long time, Newham has had neither, and so I would want myself and the chief exec to sit down together with some mediation to work out how we align the priorities of the officers and the members in order to make sure that we achieve what the council can do, because you will need those officers to help deliver that change, and if they have confidence in you as a leader, they'll be able to do that. And that comes back to what I said about Nolan principles of public life. You need to have a leader that you trust to manage that relationship with the officers. They're really, really important in achieving what you want as a council. You need to treat them well. They are your staff. They're not punch bags to blame for the things that have gone wrong. They are the solution, part of the solution to the problem. And you need to give them the confidence and the autonomy to get on and make change happen.
Thanks very much indeed. That's really helpful. I wanted us to go back now to a couple of questions that have come in. A really very, very specific one on the housing crisis. A very specific question came from John in Forest Gate, who referred to the problem of high multiple occupancy in some houses in Newham. We've got the Renters Act, which is coming into effect on the 1st of May. So there are big changes on the way. How are you going to really use this opportunity from the 1st of May to bring about real lasting change in the housing crisis in Newham? Forward.
Well, let's highlight some of the achievements. The private landlord licensing scheme, Newham was the first in the whole country to implement that. Very proud of that being implemented. But we need to do a little more work around promoting the good landlords at the same time. We know there's a lot of bad ones. The Renters Act, protecting our tenants. That's one heck of a delivery. Protecting our tenants across the borough, across the country. That's something to achieve. Again, the power of a Labour government delivering for local councils. We've got a lot of land in this borough. We've got Popular, a Newham Council internal organisation delivering and building social houses, but I think we can do more. We need more public-private partnerships to build new homes, to build social homes, to build affordable homes. But we need to do that in collaboration and make sure the developers put our communities first. And we've got to make sure that those monies are driven at a local level.
Great. And Arik?
Yes, so as I mentioned before, I've made housing a huge part of my campaign. Unfortunately for Forhead, I don't think he's going to have a huge amount of credibility on housing until he clears up these questions about his this flat acquisition. But I would also ask listeners to think about who are you electing to represent you and what are their backgrounds. So in the Green Party, our councillors come from all walks of life. We've got teachers, we've got software engineers, we've got community activists, youth workers. In the Labour Party and also in the Newham Independence Party, who again didn't show up today, there are many landlords, and I would ask you to think about, are they going to stand up for you? Whose interests are they going to actually stand up for? And in the Green Party's manifesto, we put forward several policies around protecting renters as well. We want to replicate what Zoran Mamdani is doing in New York and introduce renters rip-off hearings when we bring renters and renters' rights groups into the room with housing officers to really discuss the issues that they're facing with their landlords and hold landlords to account. We want to push for more affordable social housing. We want to establish new checks and balances on tackling fraud in the housing allocation process. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, Newham Council is currently under police investigation for serious housing fraud. After 35 properties were given to people who weren't eligible for them. So we will make sure that the housing department we have currently works 10 times better, and we'll also make sure that the conditions that temporary accommodation tenants are living in are improved, because many people are in temporary accommodation now for more than a decade, right? So it's not really temporary anymore. So we want to make sure they have access to washing and cooking facilities, Wi-Fi, storage facilities, and clear lines of communication with the council.
Great, thank you very much. I've got a couple of really quick questions which I'd like you to have a look at. One's a very, very specific one. Newham is has one of the largest, if not the largest, Muslim community in the country, and there's a real problem about provision of burial space for Muslims in Newham. Now, there's a criticism which we've received here that that frankly the council is dragging its feet on this. What would you do to resolve this problem, that providing adequate burial space for the Muslim community?
We had a huge conversation about that this morning. It was at Hustings, and it was a very, very positive one. And there's clearly going to be collaboration on the way forward. We do need to look at short-term solutions around support for people who are the most vulnerable, who need that support when it comes to burials. Because remember, this is a wider issue, not just within the Muslim community. This is across all communities. There is a burial crisis, there is a funeral crisis, so we need to support all communities here. But there's a long-term solution around dealing with the capacity issue. We need to either look at land in the borough here or outside, and then basically secure the future when it comes to dealing with the issues around the burial crisis. But I think we need to do that in collaboration. It's not just a council issue. I think the council and the community need to come together to deal with it.
Well, I think there could be a lot of agreement between all of the candidates on this particular issue. I mean, it seems to me to be quite a really straightforward issue. When we've got such a significant community in the borough, all the efforts should be made to try to ensure that they live in peace and safety and security, knowing that at the end of life there is adequate provision for them as well. And so I think I'd like to move on from that if I can. Just two very quick last questions, literally very important. One of the issues is about engagement and support for young people in the borough, and the other question is about the voluntary sector. The voluntary sector is one of the most important contributors to improving the quality of life in Newham. What more can be done to support the voluntary sector? Quickly, 30 seconds. Eric.
Yes, so the Green Party are committed to investing more in our youth centres and also protecting our libraries. You may be aware there's been a huge campaign against the Labour administration's proposed cuts to library services, and we will protect them. And I think it's really important to recognise that the council has a very specific role in our community. It has a role in sort of planning and coordination, but much of the actual services that people depend on are run by community organisations, so we will support them because they play a huge role in Newham, and it's a huge part of our mission to build a Newham that we can be proud of.
It's not good news for that the People Power Places budget has been cut in half on this particular basis, this issue.
I talked about earlier about the way we're going to deliver locally, local neighbourhoods. That is going to involve our libraries, our community centres, our parks coming together, keeping Newham libraries open. But we will be working in collaboration with the voluntary sector to look at how we can deliver youth services in real local commissioning, working with the voluntary sector, working with faith organisations and charities to see how we can deliver for our young people.
Thanks very much. Laura, is there something you want to add on this?
Yeah, I was going to say, well, unless we're going to give all those neighbourhoods budgets, then those neighbourhood committees aren't going to answer the question, are they, that people are posing about how you're going to fund libraries, youth services and voluntary sector. That's still going to be the council at the core, at the centre. And I think there's a few things we need to do. We need to make sure that we don't cut them anymore for a start. We need to bring the voluntary sector together around a table to look at how we sustain it for the future. We need to see where we can talk to the government about where there may be some grants and support as a borough with high levels of deprivation, and then maybe we need to do a little bit more work as a wider community. There's been a lot of discussion on the comments about gentrification and new people coming in. Well, there is a way to use that new people power that's moving into the borough to look at how we can become a more kind and caring and more neighbourly borough as well, and invest in volunteering and supporting each other. And I think our voluntary sector are one way that we can deliver that too.
Okay, thanks very much. Luke, I was wondering if you could answer a question which is a really important question, very, very quickly. It's come right at the end, which is, what about the support for people with special educational needs? What more can be done there?
Well, a fantastic question. It begins by lobbying the current Labour government on the punitive changes to VAT in private schools that has seen thousands of special needs students pulled out of education halfway through the year, scrambling to get a place. A lot of people in the private sector of education are SEN, and there has been no planning by the Labour government to allocate additional resources. Secondly, the National Insurance Contribution Scheme, unfortunately, not deliberately, ended up actually impacting a lot of the voluntary sector, including hospices and other charities, seeing hospices and charities paying additional taxes. This was remedied far too late by the Labour government, but again, we need to find ways to be able to support those hospices and those charities that ended up overpaying, in my opinion, on taxation. And surely with a Labour Council and a Labour government, the Labour Council can lobby the Labour government to say, this is wrong, please change course.
Right.
And we've got plenty of Labour MPs here that could be raising that in the chamber. So let's hear it, James Asser, let's hear it, Labour MPs. Raise this in the chamber and lobby your current government.
Well, certainly I think that it is going to be raised, and the question of the future of Richard House plays into the question that we're talking about here in terms of loss of care provision, and there are many more issues we could discuss, but I think we're coming to the end now, and I want to very, very quickly give each candidate 30 seconds to really answer a very simple question. Why on earth should anyone vote for you on May the 7th? Because I think if it's going to be a game-changing election, people are going to want to have something different. So what makes you different, and why should people vote for you? Who would like to start? Well, Arik, you can start.
Sure. So this election, to be very clear, is between the Green Party and the Labour Party. The Green Party are the only party who can end Labour's 60-year control of Newham Council. And I repeat what I said at the beginning. Reform UK have no chance, the Newham Independents have no plan, and the Labour Party has no credibility. The Green Party are the only party that's put forward a hopeful plan that's bold but also realistic, and we are going to focus on our real challenges, which is to root out the corruption and incompetence at Newham Council, to ensure we have the best possible environment to live in with clean streets and beautiful parks, and to radically reform Newham's housing department so that it serves residents properly.
Thank you very much. And Luke, why should the Tories get the people's vote?
Fantastic. So you're not voting for me, you'd be voting for Terry Bloor. She's a fantastic candidate. She's got an impressive career and she would bring a real dynamism and spark to Newham. She's conservative, so like me, she wants to build more homes, she wants to scrap business rates for small businesses, and she wants to be honest about crime that is rising here in Newham. Newham can thrive, so let's let it thrive, let's step out of the way, and let's allow people to really enjoy their lives here.
Forhad, thank you very much, Luke. Forhad, you are reluctantly, but nevertheless, apparently the favourite to win this election. Tell us why you think that you should be voted in.
This election is a very important election, and if residents want to see the continuation of decades and decades of delivery from a Labour Council, when it comes to education, when it comes to regeneration, building homes, investing in our community, but doing things differently by putting residents first under my leadership. If we want leadership that you can rely on, and leadership that can get the job done, and that can deliver, and if you want a grassroots candidate who puts residents first, that's me. I want to be your mayor for our Newham.
Thanks very much indeed. And the last word, Laura, goes to you. Why should people vote?
My surname's
Willoughby.
My surname's Willoughby. I always come last, so there we go. I think it's not unique to Newham that when you have one party that's been in control for so long without any checks or balances and without being held to account, what you get is complacency, poor governance, and basically lazy local government. So I think that whatever you do this election, that you need to vote for somebody that is a fresh face for Newham. Now, I'm an experienced councillor and leadership. In leadership, I've worked at the highest levels of local government. I've chaired lots of equalities and diversities committees for local government, and I've worked with leaders across London. I want to bring that experience here to Newham to, shake it up, make sure that officers know that they've got a council that can work with them to improve Newham, and that we all work together as a community, our professional officers and the political leadership across the political spectrum to improve Newham.
Thank you very much indeed, Laura. And I'd like to thank the other candidates, Arik Chowdhury, Luke Black on behalf of Terry Bloor, and of course Forhad Hussain, who have joined us this afternoon. It's been a really challenging time. Thank you very much for bearing with our technical difficulties that we've had through the period, and it's been a really robust discussion, and we've heard so many questions and ideas and thoughts from outside. Thank you all for sort of participating in this discussion. I have to say, we in Newham Voices will be reporting very, very very closely on the election that's coming up. There will be sort of full coverage of all the candidates who will be appearing in our next edition and so on, and we will sort of carry on reporting on what's going on. But the most important thing, though, actually is to turn up and vote. Democracy is a strange old thing. I mean, a lot of people talk about it, but actually very often we find so many people are reluctant to participate. But it's extremely important that if there is going to be change, we are going to get a local leadership that truly represents community voice and the feelings of the people in Newham, it's really important to get out and vote. So thank you very much indeed for joining us. Good luck, and good luck particularly to everyone on May the 7th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. There you go. That's right, it's all right.
We off there?
Now we are, yes.
Right.